Hey guys, it's Michelle and welcome back to my show. Thank you guys so much for all the support, the likes, the positive comments. They really do help to grow my channel. If you're new to me, my name's Michelle and I talk about what it's like to work in luxury retail and give you some other tips and advice on shopping and stuff. Today, I want to tell you about the one thing I wish I did before starting my job as a client advisor at Louis Vuitton. It's really quite simple. Now, what I'm going to explain to you here really applies to any job, especially in the corporate world. There's always going to be office politics, and there's always going to be an array of characters, right? The one thing I wish I did was simply watch season after season of Survivor to really understand what I was getting into in the luxury world. How do the two relate? They're talking about a show where people are stuck in an island to this high-class luxury retail environment of Louis Vuitton. Yes, they do go together. Now you're also wondering, Michelle, Survivor's been on for over 20 years. Have you been under a rock? And yes, I have. I don't actually have network cable because I don't like to have an appointment with my TV. I, like the rest of the world, I now love to binge on TV series, and I'll binge all weekend. So particularly last year, my daughter and I started binging on Survivor, and it's such a fun thing for us to watch together, and I like watching her just pick up on like what the characters are doing. But anyways, as I was watching and getting hooked, all I kept thinking was, I wish I had watched this before working at Louis Vuitton. I might have maybe had a clue about some of the manipulation and the lying and the backstabbing that was going on. It's not like it was my first job in retail either, but it was the first time I worked full-time in retail, especially luxury retail. Honestly, it wasn't a position I expected to be in. It was just something I needed to do at the time. Now, I have been working in retail since I was 16 years old. The one thing I was not good at, just not good at, is brown-nosing management. I know everybody can think of the person in their office or their work environment who is just always brown-nosing, kissing butt, and as soon as the boss turns around, they're saying bad things about a coworker, or they're really not performing 100% to standard, but they seem to get away with it because they seem to be on the boss's good graces. This is not me. I believe I'm a genuine person, and I always try to see the good in everybody, but there's no way that I am going to brown nose just to get ahead in life. People can really see around that. It's one thing to build a rapport, and it's another thing to behave a certain way in front of some people and a different way in front of the others. So we all know who those are. Unfortunately, I did notice on more than one occasion, at least with 3 associates, that the brown nosers got away with a lot of things. And because of that, other employees would just quit. Like, you know what, I don't like seeing this, and I'm done with it. That also speaks volumes of what the management likes to see, because they will turn a blind eye when someone is hugging their cheeks. Well, I thought I couldn't really play in that category, and nor did I want to brown nose any of my coworkers. I just didn't really fit in, and I didn't want to fall into any type of gossip. I did stay to myself, which probably contributed a little to my downfall as well. Trying to be a team player, like how if you're at camp in Survivor, if you're getting the water and the firewood, people will say, oh yeah, she's a good asset. And coming from the cosmetics background, I would spray down in alcohol everything. So fingerprints in a luxury store drove me crazy. And I did learn from a couple of the other managers just to wipe them down when you're standing around. And I always did that. However, the thing was, you don't get credit for doing that. You don't get credit for being a team player. And there were other girls who literally just stood around, probably put their footprints and fingerprints on the counter as well as the icky customers, and then would just leave it and not do a damn thing. So gross for luxury retail. Like, people come in with their dirty hands and touch things, and then you're just gonna leave it. Like, that's your house, that's your store. And I would have liked people to take some pride in their environment, but really, Vuitton is all about the sales, and they reward the salespeople who bring in the sales. Now, let's talk about the endurance, the physical and mental endurance. I'd mentioned in another video, there are days where you're just running for 4 hours straight. And I remember days going to my coworkers like this Or they would come to me like this, and it's like, what do you need? And they're like, can you just stand with my customer? I need to use the restroom. I remember that happening more than a couple times, like kind of right leading into the holidays. That's how busy it can get. And then you have questions of like, how much is this? Why don't you have this? Where is this? What's wrong with this bag? Do you have another one? Do you have one in the back? And just barrage of questions all day. I remember one day, one of my longtime beauty clients, she came in just to say, or she came in to buy something or maybe to say hi. I don't remember, but she stood right in front of me and was like, hey, Michelle, it's me. And my mind was just racing all over the place. And I was like, oh my gosh. Hi. Or sometimes you're deep in a conversation and a transaction with a customer, and then another one comes in and you're trying to juggle both. So it is kind of an endurance test. And there was another time where my cousins came to have lunch at a restaurant nearby, and I was like, I will try to join you, but I don't know if I can. And literally what he did, I saw his arm coming in through the side door and handed me a bag of food, and I grabbed it. And that was my lovely lunch with my cousin. Now, I've also alluded to how difficult customers can be, especially when they think they're not getting what they want, when they think they're not getting their questions answered, or they're just demanding more service, more bag, more quality, all things out of our control. And what I really had to learn to do was to build a tough shell and a tough exterior so that I don't absorb all these emotions of the customers, because it is absolutely draining. There were a couple of good veterans who were really good at doing this and would give me that type of advice of like, you can't absorb this type of energy, just let it roll off your back, because at the end of the day, really, it's just a handbag. What are they complaining about? But we also had to do that with certain coworkers' energies too. If they were having a bad day, they just wanted to pout and let everybody know I am having a bad day and I don't want to help anyone. Like I said, any work environment, it's almost like daycare where you've got the pouters, the criers, the whiners, but you also have the really nice coworkers who were really willing to help and willing to be nice and friendly. Speaking of that, if you notice in some of the bios of the players of Survivor, they actually do admit to being lying, cheating, and manipulative, but it's just for the game. I'm not like that in real life. And how many of you guys believe that? Because when I see these people, I think, yeah, they must be like that in real life. Well, in retail, you have people who are like that in real life, who will be nice to your face and then stab you in the back. Of course, having worked for Nordstrom since I was 16, it's not a surprise. So there's this one associate who he wouldn't really participate in the gossip and stuff. But I remember one day him saying something about another associate who also had a lot of customers, and she was really sweet. And she was upset because somebody had stolen her customer. And he was like, oh, gosh, I can't believe she's acting that way. 40-year-old woman throwing a tantrum. And I didn't really know the details of it. But then a few months later, when it happened to me, I knew exactly what he was talking about. See, when I started working retail at Nordstrom, the first thing they taught us was that if somebody came in for an exchange and it's from the same department and it has your coworker's number on it, the correct thing to do is to save the sale, which means if they're exchanging it, even if you have to do a little bit of work or a lot of work, or if the customer buys something completely different, you ring it under your coworker's name as the exchange and sale so that they don't lose the sale. And this didn't matter if they were there or on their day off. If they were there, you could hand it back to them. But even on their days off, what we wanted to do was save the sale for our coworkers, because we're all reaching a common sales goal. This stayed with me through years for almost every retail job I had. From Nordstrom's, Macy's, you do the courteous thing and save the sale for your coworker, because you know how hard it is to make those goals. If someone came in, made an exchange, they worked hard for that customer, you saved the sale. Well, unfortunately, not everybody knows this, or they know it and they don't stick to it. And I think that says a lot about someone's character. Now in Vuitton, it is in the rule book that if that person is off the clock, then if you do the exchange, you can take the sale. So I was off the clock for not more than 40 minutes because I was actually just on my lunch break. And when I came back, this person says, oh, Michelle, I'm so sorry. Sorry about what? Did you return something for me? He said, yeah, but I waited for you. I tried to wait for you. And sometimes it happens where somebody makes the return completely. And I know what that is when someone says, sorry. I'm like, what happened? Did my cat die? And it's like, no, sorry, a capucines came back in your name. sometimes they're just returning it and they don't want to buy another one. So there's not really much you can do about it. But now this particular associate and this particular customer, I knew which one it was. He was buying a Capucines, a $5,000 bag for his wife, and he's with his kids. And all they needed to do was exchange the color from gray to black. I already knew. And this associate took the sale, put the return under my name, and took the sale for himself. Which, like I said, is in the rule book. But just being a common, courteous associate, I wasn't gone for that long. He says, oh, I tried to wait for you. Really? Did you try to look for me? Because my personal phone didn't ring, my Icon phone didn't ring, nor did anybody call the break room to see if I was there. So did you really wait for me? Or could you have told that customer, could you just come back when Michelle's back from lunch? Like, it really wouldn't have taken that long. I was probably 15 minutes away. As a courtesy, the salesperson is on her break. Can you come back? Because all you need to do, like, you did no work for it. You just changed the color. I know you have to ring it in the register, but you still could have rung it under my number. Well, yeah, these are the things we encountered. And at that time, it was a $50 commission. At that time, I needed it. But now in hindsight, take taxes out of that. So it's probably like $33. And you know, to me, it's not a big deal. So I hope you enjoy your $33, sweetheart. Because my dignity, my honesty, my consideration to other people is worth a lot more than that. Now, having said all that, at the end of the day, there was just little appreciation or gratitude for any of your efforts. Okay, now in other stores, you could simply just cancel the transaction and re-ring it, but that was not allowed in Vuitton. So even if somebody happened to ring something under the wrong number, there was nothing you can do. And having said that, having known the policy, sure, I could have told a manager, but they would not have done anything because they're trying to follow the rules. And now there was another time where I was trying to be a good employee and follow the rules, where one of my customers came in and she had ordered a world tour Palm Springs Mini, the one with the personalized patches. So she was in person in the store, and then when the item came in, she happened to be in New York. So she asked me to send it to New York. Okay, I knew I could have just slapped the postage on it and sent it out. But I remember I had done that before and there was some kind of issue. So I just ran it by my manager and said, okay, this customer's in New York. I'm gonna send it out to her. And she says, no, you have to return it under California tax and re-ring it under New York tax, which was actually going to cost a couple $100s more for the customer. So the customer wasn't happy about that. Of course, I wouldn't be either. And she wanted to cancel the order. So I told my manager that. I said, you know, I don't think that's fair. Can we just let this one slide? And she says, well, then you're the one who's committing tax fraud. I just want you to know that. I'm going to say okay to that, but you're the one committing tax fraud. I'm not committing any fraud. Are you crazy? This is manipulative. It's not like the customer was in New York and ordered it from New York. She was in the store in California. And these are the ways that they do try to manipulate you, just to try to get you to quit and get you out of there. So anyways, let's talk about my demise at Louis. I was blindsided. I was handed papers in August saying this is your last day and you need to sign here. And I asked why, and they said, well, you didn't make your sales goal in June. So what happened to July? I didn't ever have to ask. What happened in July was that I had several VICs coming in to make big purchases. One of them had purchased at least $30,000 in one day. And I know I had at least two other VICs on the calendar that month who'd probably purchased around 10 grand. So they very well knew this, because why are you now serving me in August for something claimed to happen in June? So I was blindsided. I was like, wow, not even a 2 days notice. Thanks, guys. That's really considerate. But if I think about it too, there's that incident with the Capucines, and then something else happened too, not much longer than that. You know, within the past few weeks, there was a customer who came in specifically for a bag, and it was $4,000, a $4,000 Mahina bag. And we had it in the store, just couldn't find it, somewhere in the stock room. And I ran all over the place looking for it and asked for help. And I opened the door to the back room where all the managers were sitting there. They barely looked up from eating their tacos. And I was like, I really need help finding this bag. It's a $4,000 bag and the customer wants it. And nobody got up to help me. Nobody helped me. So I should have known. You know, I was more in this frenzy of like, we've got to find this item. And of course the customer went to another boutique to find it because all I could say was, I'm gonna call you when I find it. Well, you know, this is the way they sabotage themselves too. And honestly, I want no part of that. I was very upset when I was blindsided. Of course, I went to my car, I cried, but at the same time, I was relieved because I knew that wasn't the place for me. It wasn't where I wanted to be. I knew that after a few months, but I have a little girl and I wasn't about to quit my job without having something securely lined up next. So I went to my car, pulled up my phone, looked up the beauty program that I had been needing to take and saw they were starting next week, called up, hey, can I still join? And it all worked wonderfully. So God will put you where you want to be and where you need to be, even when you don't realize it. Probably the best thing that happened to me. So with that all said, I know that was like a mouthful, but these are all things that you can take into any type of job. I know a lot of mistakes I made was that like I am an empathetic person. I'm a Cancer, wear my heart on my sleeve. I always try to see the good in people, even when they're backstabbing me or trying to pull the rug under my feet. And I think like sometimes I seem like kind of a pushover. For me, I'm not gonna fight over silly things that don't matter. If it were something to do with my daughter or like a huge amount of money, of course I'll fight over it. But for silly little sales, and some of my coworkers did give me great advice that some customers are not meant for you and some things aren't meant for you. But I always believe too, the universe always corrects itself. So if there are big returns coming in or someone stealing something from you, it's always going to be coming back tenfold in another area if you're just looking out for it. So that's my story about the greatest job in the world. Well, if you're to this point in the video, thank you guys so much for watching, and don't forget to smash that like button and leave me a nice little comment. It helps to grow my channel. Thanks so much. My name is Michelle. Bye.